All righty, folks, we have, this is the end of the second week we've been on the air. We're growing. You got to join us. Make sure you subscribe. By the way, in just a few minutes, Dinesh D'Souza is standing by. He's got a new movie out. He's going to tell you all about it. The great filmmaker and just great conservative, Dinesh, is standing by. So how do you sum up an entire campaign? How about an entire politician's career in a single image? This is how. Look at that right there. Kamala Harris on the cover of Vogue. While Americans struggle to cover the costs of basic needs and necessities, Kamala Harris dons the cover of Vogue magazine. It's the whole of the Democrat Party's MO in a nutshell right there. A tone-deaf and not at all in touch with the working class party folks, the Democrats. And real Americans, well, no help for you, but look at how cool I am. I'm Kamala Harris. I'm on the cover of Vogue. Tone-deaf. Like doing a photo shoot for a fashion magazine, but not just any fashion magazine, Vogue magazine. Any single item modeled in that magazine is a month's salary or more for so many Americans in the Bidenomics economy, if you're lucky. So who exactly is Kamala reaching by being on the cover of Vogue magazine? Well, the people who read Vogue already know who they're voting for. They're voting for anyone who's not Trump, voting any anti-American Trump, no matter how empty, characterless, and unqualified for the job of president she may be and actually is. Meanwhile, by the way, off the beaten path, Melania Trump, an actual fashion supermodel, never once was asked to be on the cover of Vogue. But guess what? Hillary Clinton was, so as Kamala, and so was Michelle Obama. Think about that for a minute. Those ladies, no offense meant here, aren't on the cover of Vogue for their unbelievable attractiveness, nor their hitness, nor their wardrobe choices. I mean, Hillary in her blue pantsuits, really Vogue? And not once Melania showing your true colors. But I digress. Like Julia Roberts, a mega millionaire actress who thinks she's, no, I don't know, whatever. She thinks she can tell Americans how we should vote. Listen.
I just hope that all the women here tonight talk to all the men that aren't here tonight, and all you brave men that are here tonight. Talk to all the other men that aren't here tonight. And let's just get it going. Enough with the fighting. Let's get to the uniting. Let's get to the joy. Let's get to the repair. Let's get to prices dropping, rents dropping. Let's get to the good stuff so we can start living our lives to the fullest potential that we have.
What happened to Julia Roberts, by the way? But Julia, lower prices, lower rents? What on earth does Julia Roberts know about any of those things? Those are the people who campaign for Kamala Harris, the celebrities, the rich, the wealthy, the liberals. Kamala, a woman running for president, is telling women all over America right here and now that she has no interest whatsoever in what you are going through, while she dons the Vogue cover and gallivants around in designer clothes. Tone deaf. Tone deaf like going to a town hall, a forum intended to answer off-the-cuff questions from real voters. And somehow she's exposed so much so that she needed a teleprompter to help her get through the tough audience questions. And when I say tough, I actually mean softballs. But if you look right there, hold on for a second, just watch it. See that? See that teleprompter? She's reading a teleprompter. Oh, and when we realized that the camera was behind her, they shut off the teleprompter. Tone deaf, like repeatedly answering questions from Americans struggling under a stifling economy created by her and by her boss, Joe. Remember, she's now said repeatedly that she would not change a single thing because in her eyes, everything under Joe has been perfect. So someone wants to know how Kamala Harris would fix it if, God forbid, she becomes the president. And her answer is the same non-answer. Listen.
So my question is as follows. What are you going to do to help the middle class so that the cost of living does not destroy us?
Thank you for the question and your point. Listen, I know prices are too high still. You know prices are too high still. And we have to deal with it. Here's how I feel about it. Again, you've heard my story. I come from the working class. I'm never going to forget where I come from.
Yeah, she comes from the work. That's her same answer to everything. She isn't, what are you going to do? What specifically are you going to do, Kamala, to fix something? Well, I come from the working class. Okay, so what? We know that, but what are you going to do to fix? Well, you know, I'm a middle-class person up in Toronto with a socialist father who's a professor. And by the way, later on in her answer, she said, the first thing Joe and I did, the first thing we did before we did infrastructure, before we did anything else, we tried to fix a broken immigration system with a bill, but it was held up. Now, most people didn't catch this, but if you remember in 2020, you remember what happened in 2020? They won the White House. Sure, Joe and Kamala won the White House, but they also flipped the House to Democrat. I'm sorry, they flipped the Senate to Democrat, and they already had the House. So they had the House, flipped the Senate to Democrat, and they had the trifecta, folks. They had all three. So for her to say the first thing we did was try to fix the immigration system, but we were held up, you were held up by your own party, genius. It wasn't Republicans holding it up. It was Democrats, because the bill sucked, and your ideas suck. Sorry, ma'am. This is Kamala saying, sorry, ma'am, we know you're struggling, paying 20% more for groceries. I know you feel like your ambitions are crushed because you're trying to make it all work and you can't afford groceries. I know it's hard or whatever, but just so you know, and this should make it all better, Kamala Harris comes from the working class. It's her canned answer. No actual real answers. But then again, she comes from the working class, but how do you explain the $62,000 Tiffany necklace she wore to the border or the $770 Hermes belts she wears when she's telling North Carolina people, here's $750 for you, even though you lost everything. And now she's on the cover of Vogue. I guess she can really, really relate now. Tone deaf. Oh, and if you're a woman and you're at all bothered by the many stories about the second gentleman, Doug, her husband, Doug Emhoff is anything but gentlemanly. Just don't be bothered about it, okay? Listen.
How do you all stay centered? How do you stay disciplined and not really go off and not really push back hard at these things?
We don't have time to be pissed off. We don't have time to focus on it. It's all a distraction. It's designed to try to get us off our game.
Does it get you off your
game? No. All we are doing, all we talk about is this election. We understand the stakes. We understand the responsibility.
What are
we
the
understand
stakes? What are the stakes?
Our very country, our future. What kind of future are we going to have?
A distraction, you called it. And Joe Scarborough just went, no, is it really? Oh, okay. Joe, that wasn't even softball. That was underhand softball interview, Joe Scarborough. You wussy. Distraction. No denials. See, the party doesn't at all care about your concerns, about your questions, everything you desire to know or need to know to vote. If you want to know if the husband of the woman running to be the leader of the free world is abusive, well, that's just a distraction. Pay no attention to that. This is the man, by the way, who Jen Psaki, former Obama press secretary turned propaganda media star, said was redefining what masculinity means.
Important part, or an interesting part of how people have talked about your role here is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that.
Slapped your girlfriend, her head spun around. A man who has these allegations leveled against him calls these things a distraction, and Jen Psaki, a woman, laughs it off. So a man who allegedly hit his girlfriend so hard her head spun and told the nanny whom he'd impregnated to abort or else, well, that's the redefining the liberal morons are wanting. Really seems like they're going backwards. Either they're going backwards or they're lying through their teeth to cover for their flawed candidate and their lack of making a smart choice in a husband and maybe a vice president. I thought decency was supposed to be on the ballot. Right, Joe Biden? Right, Kamala Harris? Right, fake Dr. Jill Biden? Looks like they're redefining what decency means too. Boom, you want a truth bomb? You want a freaking truth bomb? Okay, so remember it took FEMA 10 days to show up in North Carolina while people are starving and dying, have nothing. Well, Mayorkas finally went to North Carolina. Finally, 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks later. So he decides to do a briefing during the press briefing with KJP, and they zoom him in via Zoom on a screen, and Jackie Heinrich at Fox asks him an important question. May not be about North Carolina, but a very important question nonetheless. Listen.
Mr. Secretary, how was this man brought into the U.S.? What screening did he undergo? What did he apply for to to get here?
Jackie, I'm here in North Carolina communicating with the individuals who are still conducting search and rescue operations. Over 200 people have lost their lives in Hurricane Helene. We have reports that at least 10 individuals have lost their lives as a result of Hurricane Milton. I'd be very pleased to answer your question in a different setting, but we're here to talk about emergencies and the support that we can deliver to people in desperate need. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Secretary, but we're getting conflicting answers from your agency and from the State Department about a man who was arrested for an Election Day terror plot. How do you not have those answers prepared?
Oh, Jackie, that's not what I said. What I said is I'd be pleased to discuss this issue at a different time, but I am here to speak about disasters that have impacted people's lives in real time, and that is a subject that I'm addressing today.
Mr. Secretary, can you assure people that appropriate steps have been taken to secure the country against these kinds of threats? Because the outstanding question is whether this man was radicalized before the U.S. government brought him here or afterward. And people should be concerned about that.
Jackie, your persistence in questioning can be matched by my persistence in answers.
She had to ask him 3 times. 3 times she asked him the same question, by the way, which was absolutely relevant and important. We find out that there was an Afghan national brought to the United States, worked with the deep state within the United States, and he was plotting an Election Day terror event. This is 2 weeks away. You don't think this is an important question to ask Mayorkas? And again, once again, when they get nailed, when they get backed into the corner, just like KJP did the other day when Ducey asked them, how can you say $100 million for Helene hurricane victims and $157 million for Lebanon? And she said something like, well, we need Congress to come back and do their job. Well, Congress apparently didn't need Congress for the 157. And then she got frustrated. She got back to the corner, closes the book and walks out. Mayorkas 3 times said he couldn't answer something like, by the way, that whole thing, that whole photo op garbage that he did, he was in North Carolina 6 hours. And look what, he was there. He was so aggrieved by being in North Carolina for that time. Look at what he did right afterwards. Well, he had to get over to Nobu. He had to grab sushi dinner at Nobu, D.C., which, by the way, will cost the taxpayer probably $500 a head. It's a very expensive sushi restaurant in D.C. Folks, these people are disgusting. They're all about themselves. They lie, they obfuscate, and when you corner them, they run off. KJP, Mayorkas, truth bomb. Boom, Bolling.
Somebody has to help this country, and if they don't, the country and the world are in big trouble.
Someone's got to overturn the tables in the temple.
Trump jumping into the presidential race.
She's a bit worried.
Of the Apprentice guy?
You know the feeling of power. Could you handle it or would it devour?
They fear that power. You didn't do an insurrection. Had you called for one, there would have been one. And there would be one if you called for one now.
I'm not sure I want that power. I want the power just to make the country better.
America first!
And that scares them.
A lot about Donald Trump scares them.
Let's look at everything. Campaign, his family. Let's get foreign eyes on him. We have one target. You know who he is.
Going after their companies, their families. That is a dictator.
It's a very dangerous time for our country.
The goal is to put him in jail because they're so afraid of his voice.
I am your voice.
We'll bury him so deep in legal, it'll bankrupt them.
Broke Donald in jail right before the election.
Sorry for being that guy, but isn't that election interference?
It's not interference if we do it.
We just want a free and fair election.
Sounds expensive.
Ballots ain't cheap.
Wait. Did you actually say the word buy the ballots?
We were able to purchase 10,000 ballots.
That's terrifying.
They cheat in many different ways. That's all they're good at.
Ready to save democracy?
We need to stop him permanently.
And that person will be risking his life.
Too bad it's not the 60s, right?
It's the way you survived.
And I said, get me up.
Trump has beaten back every attack against him.
It's like the damn Terminator.
We're going to fix our borders, and we're going to fix our elections. We're going to win.
This is my legacy.
Vindicating Trump.
The best is yet to come.
Only in theaters September 27th.
Well, that was a clip, a little piece of the trailer for Dinesh D'Souza's new film, Vindicating Trump. And we have Dinesh D'Souza, the man, the filmmaker, the great conservative with us right now. Welcome, Dinesh D'Souza.
Thank you.
The, KJP, when asked about how come there's only $100 million going to North Carolina, yet $157 million going to Lebanon, while she claimed that they needed Congress to get more funding for hurricane victims, yet they found more money for Lebanon, the home of Hezbollah, being financed by the country that wants to wipe Israel and the United States off the map, Iran. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy going on there. When she was confronted, she closed the book and ran out of the room. We just talked about Mayorkas yesterday saying, couldn't answer the question that Jackie Heinrich from Fox asked, very relevant, that there was an Afghan national who was plotting an assassination or a terror event on Election Day, and Mayorkas said, I can't talk about that. I'm in North Carolina right now. It was 2.5 weeks later, and he was there for 6 hours. Anyway, my point is they keep hiding. They keep off. At some point, Jen Psaki saying, first gentleman is redefining masculinity. The guy who slapped his girlfriend so hard her face was in the back and told his baby mama nanny, who he got pregnant, to abort her. I mean, they just gaslight. And why don't the American people see it, Dinesh?
I think the explanation is this, and that is that there is a juggernaut of media propaganda that is hitting the voter who is sort of in the middle. What I mean is that the middle of the road voter, the undecided voter who's not all that into politics, is very little exposed to conservative media. What they're getting is mainstream media lying to them, gaslighting them, basically saying to this guy, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe your pocketbook. Don't believe gas prices or grocery prices. Don't believe all the crime you see around you. Don't believe the hordes of people you see crashing over the border. Don't even believe the idiocy that you see in Kamala Harris. Believe this kind of smoke and mirrors, new Kamala Harris that we're presenting you. I don't think that people are going to go for it. I think this is an attempt to turn the American people into complete suckers, and they're not.
Yeah, I think one of the more profound moments of what you're just saying right there is 2 days ago when Ron DeSantis, when he was asked, why didn't you take Kamala Harris's phone call? He said, number one, I didn't know she called. Number two, for 4 years, she's been the vice president. We've had plenty of hurricanes down here, natural disasters down here in those 4 years, but somehow this is the one time she cares about a storm in the state of Florida, and happens to be 3 weeks before an election. It's incredible how they're trying to, and by the way, she received exactly 0 votes to be the next president, yet now she's the candidate. So here, the question is, Trump now has Elon Musk as a supporter. He's got Dana White from UFC as a supporter. He's got more and more of these influencers as supporters. Will that be enough to move the needle to close the door on Kamala Harris? Or is there this wave of we want our first African-American female president that is sweeping the country? What do you think?
I don't think there's any such wave at all. I think people are looking hard at the two candidates. I think Trump is emerging as the authentic guy that people have lied about, that they've said all these things about him. And as people get a closer look at him, they're like, not only are those things dubious, they're flatly untrue. Trump is a threat. Trump is a danger. Well, yeah, he is, but not to democracy or to the country. He's a danger to the Democrats. He's a danger to the remaking of America that Obama promised and that's being carried out under Obama and then now under Biden and Harris. I think also people are taking a good look at Harris and they're seeing that she is a hollow vessel. Not only that, but there's something very disturbing going on that is obvious for people with eyes to see. The Democrats really don't operate in the normal mode anymore. They operate as a junta or as a regime. The regime installed Biden. Biden was sitting in the canoe, but he clearly hasn't been steering the canoe. The deal was obviously that when the regime decides to get rid of him, he has to go quietly. And quite honestly, it seems obvious that Kamala has come in under the same deal. No primary. You can be the face of the party, but we're going to be telling you what to do. And frankly, if you become inconvenient, we hit the eject button and you have to go out with a smile or with a cackling laugh. So think how scary it is that for the past 4 years, we don't know, Eric, you or I, who has been really running the country, and the Democrats are offering us 4 more years of the same.
I would suggest it's Barack Obama. I suggest it's been like that since 2008 when he before the election, Dinesh, if you remember this, before the election, he says, we're 5 days away from fundamentally changing America. Can you imagine? He gave us a warning sign, 5 days, and here we are, whatever, 10, 12 years later, and we are now still paying the price of Barack Obama's changing of America. You know, Dinesh, before we let you go, one final thought. So the day, that fateful day in Butler, and Trump turns his head to point to the full screen up there, and a bullet that would likely have taken part of his head off, hits his ear, grazes his ear. At that moment, listen, let's not talk about, I'm not sure where I am with my faith. I've had a lot of tragedy and trauma that made me, I was an altar boy growing up. I was this for my whole life. I had trauma that made me question it. I will tell you, when he turned it just so slightly and it just missed, it felt to me like there was a divine intervention there, that man isn't good. The world could have easily have him not turn his head that way, and it wouldn't be a question anymore. It would be a Kamala Harris or Biden presidency. But because of that, I just have a universal feeling that it's his turn. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I mean, I agree, not only because of that. Yes, the interesting thing isn't just, that he turned his head and it missed the bullet. It's that had he turned his head at any other angle, the bullet would have gotten him. He happened to turn his head in precisely the right way. The probability of that is infinitesimal, is extremely tiny. The other thing is, I think Trump showed an unrehearsed reaction to that was so unusual, so sublimely brave. I cannot think of anyone else alive who would have responded in the way that Trump did. So in a way, Trump flipped the script on its head. In other words, he used the incident unwittingly just to show what he's made of. And people talk a lot about Trump's vices. He used to be a playboy, he's an egomaniac. But at a time when we need political courage as our primary virtue, it's quite clear this guy has it in spades.
That is a very, very good point. And when, most people, when confronted with an existential threat, you have fight or flight, right? And flight would be him staying down, him being covered by Secret Service. The man was pushing the Secret Service off to jump up, and he was pissed. Dinesh, he was mad. And that is something that you can't teach. You can't train him. You can't put him in a briefing room, and you can't rehearse it. It was a natural reaction. You're pointing out something very, very relevant, that whatever it is, like him or not, he's got the fight, and he would likely fight for the country the way he was just fighting to become the next president again.
Not to mention his reaction to the second assassination attempt. I mean, going back to Butler, Pennsylvania. I mean, that alone is a kind of a massive up yours to every would-be assassin. It's like, hey, I'm back. And then his first line is, as I was saying. I mean, that is just a brilliant opening line. And it shows Trump's exquisite sense of timing. So all of this can't be going unnoticed by the American people. And then when you consider the alternative, it's not exactly a hard choice.
There you go. Dinesh, the movie, Vindicating Trump, you can see it everywhere streaming. It's in or out of movie theaters. Dinesh, always good having you out. We'll get you back again real soon. Have a great weekend, my friend.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, well, you always like to leave you with something that is either funny or quirky or snarky. And I'm trying to figure this one out. This one's all over the internet. This is all over social media. Let's play it and let's have a little chat about it on the backside of it. Watch.
Love you, all I do. Need you, no matter what I do.
All right, I'm going to have the control and cue that up again for a second, because I couldn't figure it out. That was Gretchen Whitmer with someone who I don't know who it was. She was kneeling, almost taking communion. And I'm thinking, is this because Kamala Harris said she loves Doritos and she loves those Doritos right there? And is Gretchen Whitmer giving almost like communion to this young lady, a Doritos, because it's Kamala? I mean, is this going to make her a Kamala support? I don't know what it is. Why don't you tell me? Call me. Use the voicemail line. If you have an idea what that is, call us, 888-601-0032, 888-601-0032. Make sure you subscribe. Call me toll free on that number. Again, 888-601-0032. The number will be on the screen. just tell me what the hell that was. Gretchen Whitmer giving a Dorito to a kneeling young lady. Is this the altar of Kamala Harris? Is this possible? All right, folks, 2 weeks in the books. Had our first guest, Dinesh D'Souza. See you again next week. Have a great weekend. If anything happens over the weekend, make sure you come to the page anyway. We'll put some new stuff up. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Go football. See you in NFL. Bowling out.